What's up, everybody? It's me again. I've been live every night the past couple weeks. We took a short hiatus while I was feeling a little sick, but I am back to read you more of The Children of Arc this week, my first published novel that I made together with my wife, Carrie. It's been great having you guys on. It's nice to see you a little earlier in the day for a change, because we have a very special event tonight. Before we get to the reading, later tonight at 9:30. I thought I would get together with you guys early and host a special guest. So I'm going to start, do what I used to do back when I was doing Drop a Line every week. And I'm going to play a little countdown for you guys. When the countdown ends, you're going to see a couple of promotions. And when the promotions are over, I'm going to be live with a very, very special guest. More on that later when I introduce the guest. But for now, thank you for joining here, and we will see you shortly. All right, full disclosure, it's time to get down to business. This promo is a little out of date, but Andrew, since you mentioned it in the comment section, I figured I would go ahead and play it for old time's sake. But we are having a special Drop a Line interview tonight with a very special guest whose name is Eric NYMAN. Eric is the founder of my favorite restaurant in the Vineland, Millville, Bridgeton area, particularly for the fact that it is 100% vegan and feeds my family fully every time they need something. Eric is an amazing innovator with some amazing recipes that are just really, I mean, it's just incredible. You go to this place, you bring people that have never heard of the lifestyle, that would never try the things that are offered on the menu, that would hear things and say, that sounds cool, but it's not for me. You bring these people from all over the state, all over the world, and when they get there, they say, ooh, when we coming back? Because it just never fails to disappoint. The place is known as WILDFLOWER Vegan Cafe in the Millville area. It is a business that is growing in some really amazing ways. It's been here for a long time, since well before I was vegan, well over a decade, I'm pretty sure. I sure hope I'm not getting that wrong. But I am very excited to have this man on and promote him and bring awareness to what he's doing. So in just a few seconds, we are going to be live with Eric to talk to you about the amazing WILDFLOWER Vegan Cafe. Very important for us authors to have food to power us through, right? All right, enjoy. Wrong one. And here is the man of the hour, Mr. Eric. Is it NYMAN?
NYMAN.
NYMAN. I am so sorry. Eric NYMAN. Okay. Well, I'm fired. We're going to get a replacement host in here after the next commercial, and that should save this stream. How you doing?
I'm great, Alex. Thanks so much for having me tonight. And if you need a replacement host, I've got Frankie right over. Oh, he's Frankie here.
Well, that would be the best replacement host now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. Two of them. Oh, my goodness. Amazing. It is good to see you. It's good to talk to you. I know that, the author lifestyle, having a good diet of just food you can pick up, I would love to cook every night. I really would. I work pretty consistent work hours. I would love to come home and just go to the kitchen, make a meal, prepare it, sit down. But the thing is when you're doing a lot of writing, you tend to spend hours and hours and hours at your desk. And that is why a lot of writers are restaurant-holics, in my opinion, or at least coffee shop holics. And you kind of bring them both together in how you design the place, what kinds of things you offer. And it really is an incredible experience every time I visit your place. So I'm very excited to talk to you. You're always good to talk to, but it's great that the whole world, the people that follow me here, can learn about what you do.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to share that information. And I want to say, we love being in the Glasstown Arts District. And it's not just writers that need good food, it's really all people. But I've noticed from when we opened that the artists and, painters and sculptures and clay workers and, all different creative folks of all different medias do tend to gravitate towards the vegan cuisine. So, there must be something to that when a lot of the great writers and artists, are at least vegetarian. So I'm glad to continue that tradition, perhaps expand upon it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible that you guys are where you are, serving the community that you do. It certainly was good for me when I moved back to town. One of the first words out of my mouth when we moved back, we moved from, I think, over an hour away. I lived with my parents when I was first married up in the Mystic Island area, and Carrie, who actually moved all the way there to move in with me. Then when we finally got our own place, we came all the way back here. First words out of my mouth, well, at least we'll be close to WILDFLOWER now. So we'll be there every Saturday.
Very glad you came. I mean, Carrie's been one of our regulars from the beginning. It's been great seeing her grow up and go to college and get married and, launch her career and all that. That's been one of the most fulfilling parts of this for me, being in having this location in Millville for the past almost 15 years now is, the bonds we've created with the people that come through our doors and getting to play host and, seeing the conversations that happen across tables and all that. I mean, it was about the ingredients for me when I started, and about the food, but being a host, it's really so much more. So, you hit it there with sort of being like a coffee shop and, just a venue for people to exchange ideas and collaborate and have a good time. That's the best part of it for me. I don't mind. I don't need to cook every night myself. I'm quite okay if other people do the cooking. I'll do the eating. But hey, everybody eat. It's important.
Absolutely. Eric, what is your role at WILDFLOWER Vegan Cafe? Do you wear multiple hats? Do you just do one thing? Tell us a little bit about you.
I've done pretty much every aspect of the business at some point in time. I'd say baking is the thing I'm least skilled at. But, when we opened, I used to say, oh, I'm the head janitor and the garbage man and the floor cleaner and the dishwasher and, delivery guy, everything. But I learned to cook on the job. So some cooking has to happen at times, I suppose. But for me, it was always about the ingredients, and that was one of the other things I enjoyed was getting to go to the farms and meet the farmers and seeing how the crops are grown. And, we're really blessed to be in South Jersey where there's an abundance of, great local family owned farms. And, these are small scale farms, not like in the Midwest where you have hundreds of miles of genetically modified soy or wheat or, crops that are mostly used for animal feed. These are people growing on a few acres, supporting their families. And a lot of them have been doing it for generations. And I love it.
Wow. For me, veganism, when I first started it, was me going to the frozen food aisle and, grabbing a bag that said vegan and eating something that was still heavily processed. So I wasn't meat anymore, but I wasn't quite detaching myself from the problem yet. Now, was I? We came to that realization recently. So in other words, what I'm saying is, a lot more than me about the lifestyle, about nutrition. I feel like we're going to learn stuff tonight. So Eric, take me back to the beginning. When did you first develop a fascination with and a passion for what it is you do today?
Okay, I'll give you perhaps a lengthy answer, but I grew up vegetarian. So I grew up not eating dead animals, but, drinking some milk, eating some dairy, eating some eggs. And I never really questioned it. I didn't think, that was harmful to the animals. But from an animal rights standpoint, it always made sense to me that, well, I have pet cats. I wouldn't want to hurt one of the cats, kill them, eat them. Why would I do that to any other animal? So the vegetarian thing made sense to me, much of my childhood, at least on a personal level. But I did a presentation on factory farming in college, and I thought, I'm such a hypocrite. I'm supporting these industries that exploit and violate animals. And, I'm not eating dead animals because I don't, I see the harm in that. But the egg and dairy industries are, fantastically exploitative to animals, and they wind up, the same way at the end, maybe worse. So I started phasing animal products out of my diet over the course of 6 months or so. And I think the idea for the restaurant actually came back in 2007. George W. Bush was president. I'd gone to some anti-war protests, the Iraq invasion, and my folks had taken me to see Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. All four of them were still alive at the time. In Woodstock, New York, or Bethel, New York, rather, the site of the original Woodstock Festival. And it was a fantastic show. This was their Freedom of Speech tour. Voices were still really good. The instrumentation was amazing, really high energy tour. And I thought, this place needs a vegan restaurant. There weren't a lot of places to eat up there. So I tried to get my friends from school to go in on a plot of land with me. And, hey, could we buy an old farmhouse, turn that into a restaurant, grow stuff on the land? And I never really found anyone to go in with me on that idea at the time. But a few years later, 2010, I'd taken a job in Millville, met someone, I was going to have a kid, I bought a house. And the job went under. It was a job building pipe organs, actually, for churches, and in the industrial park in Millville. And they went out of business, and I was going to have a kid. And I thought, this might be my last time that I can do something meaningful in my life. Something, there's a lot of injustices in this world, and I want to do something to make it better, not just sort of continue it. So I found and my ex was a pretty good cook. So I found a lunch truck on Craigslist. It had a route in Cherry Hill. They served a number of high-end salons and day spas. And this fellow would pull up to the salon, go inside, go to the different hairdressers, take their orders, go back to the truck, make the sandwiches, then bring it back in. So that's the route I purchased with this 1977 Chevy truck that I found got 7 miles a gallon because I ran out of gas a couple times in it, and I filled it up and I did the math. I was like, yep, 7 miles a gallon. So commuting from Millville to Cherry Hill at 7 miles a gallon to serve lunch through a very narrow window with that business plan of going into the salons and back out and back and forth. And, it never added up financially, but it was an amazing learning experience. And I had a lot of fun in that era. I mean, working on the truck, it made animal sounds. It was sort of like an ice cream truck.
Cool.
And it hose it off. I remember changing the radiator and stuff. I got to play around, have some fun with it. Probably breathed too many exhaust fumes at the time, but it got the start. Getting my feet wet in the kitchen and food service and all of that. I mean, I'm a philosophy major. I'm totally unqualified to run a restaurant, but that was the need. And to jump around a little bit, but I'd also, when I moved to South Jersey, was volunteering with the American Vegan Society in Malaga some, and they sent me on a scholarship to the Vegetarian Summerfest in Jonestown, PA, Western Pennsylvania. And I remember taking away from that conference a lot of the need at the time. And, back then in 2010, you had maybe 2 all vegan restaurants in all of Philadelphia. There were quite a few in New York, a few in North Jersey, nothing in South Jersey. Actually, there was one place in Merchantville, Zzz's To Go, became Imani's Veggie Garden, but they closed right around the time we were opening up. So there wasn't much in the area. And it drove me nuts that the American Vegan Society in Malaga, this incredible organization with probably the largest collection of vegan and vegetarian literature on the East Coast, close to 1,000 titles. They put their own magazine out, books on health, ethics, nutrition, cookbooks, everything. They were next to a McDonald's and 2 diners that were very heavy on the animal food. And it's like, well, we really need to get the vegan food out. How do you expect people to stop exploiting animals and, bringing billions of beings into the world to have a miserable life and wipe them out of existence to feed people and give them heart disease and diabetes and cancer and all these, all this environmental devastation, the sort of things you learn about when you go vegan that you try not to think about all the time or you might go crazy. And I was like, wait, we got to do this. We got to get some vegan food out there. So I bought the truck. We did the route in Cherry Hill for a little bit. I saw financially it wasn't the best plan. And I always thought the little cafe in Millville's Arts District, the Village on High, was really cute. And I was walking by one day and there was a for rent sign on the door. I met the landlord, Mary Ann Cannon, the same day, signed the lease the same day. And
Wow.
we opened our doors in January 2011 in Millville.
About that.
Yeah, so the business is about 14 and a half years old, counting the truck, a little more than 14, brick and mortar in Millville. But the people of Millville have been so good to us. There's such an interest in the demand for the food. People were always curious and open-minded. You got a few people who are like, oh, vegan food, but most of them don't come in. I couldn't believe when we opened how many people were interested in eating this way. And if I could have gone back in time, I would have raised more money and opened a proper sit-down restaurant from the beginning. But we did what we could do with the resources we had. And meant $4,000 for a lunch truck on Craigslist, turned that into a little tiny takeout place. It's a little takeout place grew a few times, so now we have some limited dining area, and probably time to expand again. But it's been an interesting ride.
I tell you, it's really fascinating to hear your story, because every time I walk in, I ask myself, what's the story here? I mean, I walk in, it's like, it's a little lunch counter, like you said. It's got all of these, advertisements, these conscientious advertisements up that tell me about things that are going on in the state, the country, the community. It's got this wonderful digital menu, which I'm going to ask you about later. And just, this takeout atmosphere. But then right to the right is this lovely, small, but inviting little dining area. You don't need to be seated. You seat yourself. And I just say to myself, this is like a home away from home. It's like a person you can drive to, like a library or a coffee shop where you can just come in, hang out, and have one of the best meals of your life. I'm just like, this is absolutely incredible. I don't know. I mean, wow. Like every time I walk in, I'm like, how did this thing come about? I swear, this is literally the best place. And your location in that little community right outside, which provides a little bit of outdoor seating naturally. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's like a little slice of heaven right in the corner of, High Street Millville.
Thanks, Alec. That means so much to me. And, especially when I get out of the kitchen and sit in the dining room myself, or go into the little courtyard in the village on high, all these neat little handcrafted item stores and gift shops and artist studios and galleries. That's what got me to Millville. When I moved to South Jersey to take that job, I visited Vineland, I visited Bridgeton, nothing against the other towns, but High Street was really cool. There were all these art galleries. They had the Third Friday thing going. You had live music in front of the stores sometimes. And, when the economy tanked early, 2008 to 2012, the housing thing, that put a big damper on the businesses, not only in Millville's downtown, but all over the country. And, we've been kind of growing it back since then. Levoy Theater's open now, and there's some other newer things, the Clay College. So I've seen sort of the demise and the rebirth of Millville's Arts District, as many downtowns, all over the country have experienced. So, it's cool to be part of a community and, see people grow up and go away to school and come back, and all of that's been great.
Well, the amazing thing is that since my wife and I have lived in a couple of different places, we've been around Manahawkin, Mystic Island, Vineland, Millville, Bridgeton. We've driven all over Cherry Hill and Merchantville. All these places we've been, and we've done the research everywhere we've gone of where we can eat, obviously. And what I find is that vegan restaurants, often the story seems to be they open and they close. Yeah. You know what I mean? They move in, they move out. Somebody has a neat idea, they move in, they try to do something that's kind of competing with the commercial brands of Gardein or Morningstar and all that in their recipes. And they make a splash. People come out, they get some junk food, they enjoy it, they stop coming, and the place goes under. We even had one in the Vineland area, right on Landis, that catered our wedding back in the day, and they're not there anymore. And so what I really admire about you is that you didn't want to just open a restaurant. The restaurant was almost secondary. You had a vision for a service that you wanted to provide the world, and you stuck to that. And over a decade later, you're still standing.
That's true. And, Vegans Are Us, they're friends. Hey, we made your cupcakes too.
I remember. Those are some good cupcakes.
I believe they are going to reopen in Atlantic
Good.
City. Last I talked to Sharonda, she was hoping to reopen in the fall, and obviously that hasn't happened yet, but hopefully soon, because I feel like there's a place for, just as you go down any city street or see what kind of restaurants are around, which hey, there's a lot of pizza and Chinese places, but Italian's great, Mexican, Spanish food is great. There's all sorts of diversity in cuisine, and all of that can be veganized. And I don't mind if some of that is a little more on the processed junky side, because it's a treat for here and there. There's ice cream shops. You shouldn't be eating ice cream 3 times a day, even if it's vegan ice cream, even if it's made from cashews. But getting enough calories, I think that's something some people struggle with on a vegan diet. And the foods that maybe are like lightly processed, if they're still whole foods ingredients, not the worst thing in the world. I think it's really important people consume enough calories and get enough nutrition. And my business, Wildflower, is a little bit hard line on doing things the hard way, and the whole from scratch, all whole foods, like local, organic, the stuff that costs us more and takes more time to make. And it does set us apart. But, at home, sometimes I'll have a veggie burger, different brands. My son loves the processed junk meats. I think as long as you're getting, some fresh vegetables, some fresh fruits, some whole grains in there, I just because I don't serve, Gardein or some of the other brands. And there's so many now, and some are awful and some are delicious, and, some taste good, but they're kind of junky for you. Some taste good and they're kind of good for you. See what's out there. There's so much more out there than there ever was. And let me offer this as something to your listeners. I have an account with a distributor called Ace Natural. They come all the way from New York. And ecologically, I feel a little bad about that. But then again, if I was driving all over getting these ingredients and paying more for that, I'd be burning my gas versus them burning their gas. So gas is going to be burned no matter what. But they won an award as the greenest distributor, and they use biodiesel and so forth. So they try to do things right. And they have access to a lot of plant-based mock meats that you can't find at ShopRite or even Whole Foods or Mom's Market. The thing is, a lot of them, you have to buy like 40 pounds of them. So if anyone is interested in sort of as a co-op going in on, a case of limited ingredient, mushroom bacon or something, hit me up. I'm happy to provide that service. Of course, we can offer, seitan and whatnot that we make that's pretty meaty. But some of the store-bought foods are really good. I mean, we use a mushroom a home called My Bacon, which is made from mushrooms and a little hickory smoke, a few other things. And it's very tasty. And it's not bad for you unless you eat too much of it, because it is a little high in sodium.
That's right. We have a question that popped up from good old Andrew, who is my partner here at One True Promotion. He wanted to know for non-vegan foodies. So I guess he's a foodie now. I didn't know that. That's good to know. All right. For non-vegan foodies, there's a phrase, who are looking to try vegan options. Is there a dish that can help you ease into vegan taste and quality? It's a good question.
Sure. It's something I've enjoyed since I was young. You might need to go to culinary. It's called a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, this is an example of how far of everything that's wrong with the food system in this country. If you go into a grocery store, not a health food store, not, Mom's Organic Market or Har's or something, and look at the peanut butter, a lot of the peanut butter is half oil, half sugar. There's peanuts in it, but it's a lot of stuff you don't really need to add more of to your diet. So get good peanut butter. Get peanut butter that the ingredient is peanuts and maybe a little sea salt. And then, instead of a high fructose corn syrup jelly, get some jam, something that's made from real fruit. It might still have sugar in it, but there's some nutrition in it. If the first ingredient is blackberries or raspberries or peaches or something. And bread. This is, again, just a very simple thing that if you buy white bread, not a lot of nutrition. But if you buy something that's whole grain, non-GMO, organic, if possible, you're going to be consuming less toxins, less pesticides, and more nutrition. The Ezekiel bread is great. ShopRite has that in the freezer section, and it's sprouted whole grains, and it's going to be filling for you. The only source of protein is not meat. It's not even peanuts. but whole grains and beans and legumes. You want to incorporate as many of these whole foods ingredients as you can into your diet. So something as simple as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if you get good bread and good peanut butter and good jam, it's going to be good for you and you're going to feel full and feel good. Hey, maybe eat an apple with it or something. But I mean, I could talk about shortcuts on food all day. I mean, before I moved to South Jersey, opened a restaurant, I took about 6 weeks traveling in an old car I got for $200. And I drove to the West Coast and back, and I lived off of cans of beans, refried beans and shredded wheat, maybe some coffee and beer too. But you don't need to be a gourmet to get what you need to have a lot of energy and feel good. So keep it simple, use the whole grains, use the beans, if it's in nature, chances are it's going to treat you well. Now, I think what most people will wind up doing to save time at home is sort of do a hybrid, make a salad that's fresh from ingredients from your garden or from the local farm if possible, because when it's picked at you have the best nutritional value, the fresher it is. A lot of stuff is grown hydroponically halfway across the world and then sits in refrigeration for 2 months. And, it really depletes the nutritional value of it. So South Jersey, eating fresh is easy. Make yourself something that's fruits and vegetables from scratch. And then if you need to buy a vegan ravioli, like soy boy ravioli or Kite Hill ravioli, these are available at Mom's Organic Market in Cherry Hill. Unfortunately, that's the nearest place. I might be able to get you a case of it if you need. Maybe Harz might have it in Vineland. You could make your own tomato sauce for it, or you could buy a Whole Foods tomato sauce that's not doesn't have any fructose or preservatives or anything in it. Well, tomato is sort of a natural preservative, but that's an example of a meal that doesn't have to take a lot of time, that you can make from scratch. And maybe you're buying one thing off the shelf in the store, maybe 2 or 3 things, and it's okay. Now, if you want to go hardcore and make everything yourself, something like pesto or hummus. I'm a big fan of one-pot dishes, maybe because I'm lazy.
Me too. We're all one. This is a one-pot podcast.
Yeah. So something like, like hummus, you're blending beans and, a little bit of olive oil and some tahini and fresh garlic. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. You can soak the beans overnight and cook them, or if you use a can or 2 of beans, again, not the end of the world. Blend it up, and you could use it as a dip, put it on pita. So you can kind of go as far as you want with it. I can't say there's one, just one. I can't narrow it down to just one dish. I'm sorry if I'm dodging the question.
Right. No, I think that was good.
We make our own pizza at the cafe. My guy Joey makes the pizza, really. But he's soaking cashews and blending them up to make cheese, and he's making his own tomato sauce, and he's making his own dough. He's proofing it and all that. He puts a lot of love into it. It takes a lot of time to make pizza, and then people are like, "Yeah, why is this $10 a slice?" I'm like, well, it's a meal. So if you do something like that at home, nothing wrong with that. But you might want to budget a good amount of time if you're going to make it totally from scratch that way. Or you buy some Miyoko's cashew mozzarella at the store, and in a pre-made crust, and chop up some mushrooms and put the the mushrooms are your fresh whole food ingredient. There's a T-shirt that says, "Anything you can eat, I can eat vegan." And that's really true. I mean, I think they even have vegan like foie gras and veal and things that I have no interest in, but you can go as far as you want with this, But if I can help get you the ingredients or tell you where to get the ingredients, by all means, give me a shout.
I'll tell you what, you're very generous, sir. We appreciate that. We've got another comment in here from Rafe Lever. Says, vegan donuts are a vital part of my Whole Foods vegan diet. Winky face. Is this one of your friends?
Hey, man. I don't know, not by that name, but I enjoy a donut. I love a donut. And at Wildflower, we make them on occasion. I think you guys had some. Someone told me, one of my regulars told me they tasted a little healthy. I was like, well,
they tasted delicious is what they tasted like. I'm sorry to jump in, but I grew up on Dunkin' Donuts. That was my treat every weekend because we had one by my house. Hey, doggy.
Stealing the show. Yeah, can't go wrong.
And when I was working in Long Beach Island, where I used to live, near where I used to live, I used to stop at Dunkin' Donuts every pretty much every morning. And sometimes I would bring a box in for the people working staff there. I mean, I was donut obsessed. Carrie too. When I was hanging out in the Toms River area, I went to this specialty donut shop where they would make it right in front of you and top, bake it fresh and top it with all these creative toppings and all that. It was called Uncle Dude's. And one of my favorite, albeit expensive, treats was to get specialty donuts. And let me tell you, there's this place in Philadelphia called Dottie's Donuts, which does that very well with vegan stuff. But when I tasted yours, I think you're giving them a run for their money.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. I mean, I'm using organic flour, organic oil. So some of the ingredients are, it's still donut. It's not good for you. It's flour, it's fat and sugar. But, I want to say ours are maybe a little less bad. We make them at home sometimes. My son, they're not that fancy, but hey, fried dough is going to taste good. Dottie's in Philly is amazing. The Tasty, it's a vegan diner in Philly. They make an old fashioned cake style donut that I really enjoy. And sometimes I go up to my mother-in-law's house in upstate New York, up by Albany, and there's a place called Bitchin' Donuts, and we really love them too. I mean, I've brought them back for my staff and parents and such here and there. So yeah, proper vegan donut stores, it's a craft to be able to have the variety of flavors and make it indistinguishable from Dunkin'. But yeah, if you ever want to ask us to make you a dozen, we can do that for you.
I love the story you told in response to Andrew's first question about peanut butter and jelly. I have a quick story to tell, a shorter story. This is not a nutritional story or anything like that. This is just a story about life. My father, God bless his heart, cannot figure out what vegan is, no matter how many times I explain it to him. I feel like with certain people, you say meat, fish, dairy, eggs, non-GMO, halfway through that, you've already lost them. No matter how many times. It's the same thing every time. They just cannot figure it out. So, of course, I'm over there. I'm doing some work for him on his computer, help him with his website. He invites me into his kitchen. He gives me this big thing of pasta and meatballs. He's like, "Can you eat this?" And I'm like, "No." And he pulls out another thing. He's like, "Can you eat this?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, because they're turkey. It's okay, right?
Yeah, right. So I'm trying to be patient. I'm just like, "No, I can't eat that. Sorry, looks good. Can't eat it." He looks puzzled. He goes, "Well, what can you eat?" So it's okay. We're making progress. And I literally sat there for a minute. I'm thinking. And I go, "Do you have bread, peanut butter, and jelly?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, I have that." And I'm like, "Great. Hook me up."
Yep. My older employers, he passed away recently, but he tried to give me a ham sandwich once, and he just couldn't wrap his head around. Well, what's wrong with it? Well, it's just ham and mayo. It's like, I don't eat either of those. I don't want to, I'm not looking to have a big discussion right now over this, but yeah, I think it's sort of just people. It's tough to go there mentally. And I think a lot of people who go vegan have sort of experienced a major shakeup in their life, whether it's some sort of personal trauma or, spiritual awakening. And, you guys sometimes shake up your consciousness a little bit to become open to new ideas. And, something that's so entrenched in our Western society is, hey, animals, be nice to them, but it's also okay to kill them and eat them. It's such a foundational part of so many people's lifestyle. It's tough. Let me address Andrew's question real quick, because I could go into a philosophical diatribe on ethics of eating. But salads and keeping things fresh, restaurant trick, keeping the ingredients separate will go a long way towards keeping them fresh. If I make a salad and bring it home and leave it in my fridge, the next day the cucumbers might be soggy. If I bring home a bin of cucumbers and a bin of lettuce, they'll both be okay, especially if they're in airtight containers. So proper storage of fresh foods can easily double or triple your shelf life. This is something that I don't have the exact article off the top of my head, but you can do a search on best ways to store produce, and they'll give you all these things, wrap this one in a moist towel and put this one in an airtight thing and leave this one in a bag that it can breathe. Cucumbers are like that. They do better in cardboard or in paper. Just all different fruits and vegetables have different storage techniques. And this is how our ancestors kept them without refrigeration, because you had a root cellar. And you were pickling some things or canning others, but a lot of things you were able to just keep it cool and in a dark, moist environment, and it would last. So, refrigeration is not necessarily the apex of food storage for freshness and vitality, but it is a convenient shortcut. So whatever the ingredients you're looking to preserve are, just look into that. And, some of them I might have the answer for you, and others I might not, but somebody does. And, they can tell you, oh, yes, fruit for smoothies. So here's a good one for that. The freezer is a piece of modern, it's 100 years old now maybe, but technology that is going to be your friend. I don't use a lot of frozen stuff at the restaurant, but we wait until bananas are fresh and then we freeze them, because a frozen banana texturally will make a smoothie creamy and not taste as much like a banana, whereas a fresh banana, if you blend that up, your smoothie is going to taste like a banana. Not everyone loves bananas. So smoothie fruit, I mean, hey, I love a fresh juice or a fresh smoothie, but sort of pick your battles. If you know that you're not going to eat this big vat of strawberries in the next 2 days, freeze them. And in some instances, they'll actually do what you want even better than fresh. And if nothing else, they're not going to go bad, and you're going to preserve virtually all of the nutrition. If you freeze something promptly, it's actually going to preserve more nutrition than if it sits in the fridge for a week and you don't have to worry about going moldy. So yeah, one thing, I mean, is like, just eat it as much as you can, the fresh stuff, because it goes bad fast. And if it's a fresh fruit or vegetable, you almost can't eat too much of it. There's, for very few people, very few adverse effects to, eating a lot of fruit or vegetables if they're in their whole form. I mean, if you probably won't be able to eat enough carrots to give you diabetes, but if you juice carrots and drink like a gallon of carrot juice a day, you might have some problems, because you're getting rid of all the fiber, which your body needs to slow down the digestion. And that's actually what feeds your microbiome and gut bacteria and so forth. I am not a food scientist or nutritionist, but things I've learned along the way. You'd be surprised how many people don't like bananas, but free range bananas, it's a big problem these days. One of the fellows who used to work for me I don't think we ever took him up on this, but he said, I have a banana costume. I could stand in front of the store in my banana costume one day and see if we get people to come in. And then yeah, people sometimes ask for no tomatoes, no red cabbage. I've got people who ask for no lettuce in a salad. Everyone has different little, things, quirks maybe, but keeps things interesting, right?
I have a question. Salad was something I always avoided, even a couple years into me being a vegan. Salad was something that was just an adjustment for me. How did you come up with the idea for a salad that has not only been my main course, but has been multiple guests' main course, who have come to your place from out of state and told me this is the best salad they've ever eaten? I'm of course referring to your Rock and Ranch salad. Okay. How did that come about?
That was one my son's mother, the original chef, put together, that combination of ingredients, and we just kept it going. I mean, I have no personal ego in terms of the food, like what recipes need to be served. I feel like if people are happy eating something, I want to provide them with that. So like one of the girls who made all the smoothies years ago, she moved to Colorado, I think. We're still making her smoothies, it's sort of different things on the menu, different people have added over the years, and we've sort of evolved them. I mean, the ranch recipe itself, I think we've played with a little bit to, hopefully perfect it or make it better. But those TVP bacon bits, they're a recipe in I believe it's called Brianna Clark Brogan's no fat vegan cookbook. And there's only 4 ingredients. It's TVP, which stands for textured vegetable protein. Doesn't that sound appetizing? But it's basically soy flour turned into like little ground beef looking nuggets. It's dry. You have to add liquid to rehydrate it. So you heat up some water and you add some tamari or Bragg's. We use an organic wheat-free tamari, which is basically salt juice. It's used in Asian cooking, and organic agave syrup, and a little bit of hickory smoke. The brand I get, it's just literally wood smoke. They burn hickory logs in a closed environment. It's really strong. You got to be careful not to overdo it. Just like, burning something on a stove, you can char a pepper and it tastes good of, flame kissed pepper, but nobody wants a straight up burnt pepper. Recipes. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we'll do a cooking class again, or a subsequent episode that talks about the actual ingredients and, the portions. Cause I can tell you how to make a batch that'll feed a normal family for a month, or my customer base for half a week, but scaling it down to personal usage might be helpful. But the same thought process as storing vegetables and keeping them separate applies to what we make as well in terms of the dressings and things. It's really, you can buy a store-bought ranch and follow your heart. It's a great vegan brand, right? They make something called Vegenaise. It's a vegan mayonnaise. A lot of people who hate regular egg-based mayo love Vegenaise. It's kind of in the ballpark from what I remember. But it's a good product. It's non-GMO. It's basically oil. It's not something you should be eating by the spoonful, but a little bit of it in your diet for most people. A little bit of oil, a little bit of healthy fat, good for your skin, good for vitamin absorbability. I don't think there's some schools of thought that say we shouldn't add any fat to our diets, but I think that's most helpful if you're trying to treat or reverse an acute disease. If you're suffering from cancer, maybe you want to go totally oil-free. That might work for you. For most of us that are in the ballpark of healthy, I think we can get away with a little oil here and there, especially if it's from a whole food like an avocado. But anyway, that Vegenaise, that brand that makes the Vegenaise, the vegan mayo, they have a ranch in a bottle. It's not that good. The ingredients might be almost the same as our ranch that we make in-house. And it's, 95% that vegan mayo, but we're adding, sea salt and fresh cracked black pepper and granulated garlic and onion powder and dried parsley and dried dill and a little bit of vinegar. It's good to add an acid to most foods, whether it's lemon juice, lime juice, or some form of vinegar. Helps bring out the flavor, make it pop. So, once you understand sort of how to cook, it's transferable. The techniques and theories are transferable to almost anything. These competitions where they're like, hey, you don't know Iron Chef or whatever, you're going to make something, but we're not going to tell you what you're going to have to make. We're just going to give you the ingredients. Once you understand how food combines and interacts, it's chemistry basically. Yep. So, and when you're in the kitchen all the time, it becomes sort of muscle memory and you just do it, without thinking about it too much. But we can try to break down those techniques and help vegans versus non-vegans.
And with that, I'm curious. I mean to ask you, how is the business doing currently, and what are your future goals for it?
Business is okay. I tell you, the past few years, we had some challenges. We had an opportunity to expand, which didn't work out, and I kind of took my hands off the wheel a little bit and was caught up with that project. It's been a little difficult for me to figure out exactly what went wrong, if it was just the economy or I don't know. We at a time that I was expecting that business was good and I was expecting it to stay good or maybe get better, it actually got worse a few years ago. So we built it back, I'd say starting in the fall. And it's not like it got so bad that we were feeding an awful lot of people. But, the pandemic just changed everything. We went from having a lot of people that ate lunch in-house to less people who would come in and buy, huge bags of groceries. And, our bakers freaking out. They just bought all the cupcakes that would have been enough to, feed 3 dozen people. And now one person took it all. So it became harder to figure out the quantities to make during the pandemic. But we got over that, and people still go out to eat. The thing is that the business is so diversified in terms of how people eat now, because we're with these Grubdoor and DoorDash and Grubhub, and people order at different foods at different times. I have a less predictable lunch and dinner crowd than I used to, but we have a more steady overall business. So it's a little tricky to figure out. But anyway, winters usually are slow season. We had a good winter and we're heading into a good spring, hopefully. Vegans versus vegetarians that are our customers. I'm reading this inquiry here. I would guess that no more than 50% of our customers are vegan or vegetarian, but I don't really know. I don't card people at the door. People's diets change. I hate to say it. Sometimes I see someone a lot, and then I don't see them for a while. Maybe months or years. They come back and it's like, they don't look so good. But we all get hit with life in different ways, at different times. Right. Try to just be a good host and meet people where they are. One of the things I'm proud of what we've built is the diversity of, our clientele and our staff. Not everyone is vegan or vegetarian or even wants to be. Some people are trying to eat healthier. Some people don't care about eating healthier. They just like how the food tastes. So, I'm happy to feed and host everyone. Do I want to abolish the atrocity of institutionalized animal agriculture? Absolutely. Am I in a position to do that? No. So I respect, people where they are and try to give them the option. So it's nice, to provide a place for other vegans and vegetarians, to have something they can eat. But I also enjoy feeding people who are new to it. And really, getting to see the conversations that happen when people sit and eat together means so much. And in our increasingly isolated society, all the streaming stuff and, delivery apps.
That's right.
It scares me. That's one of the things of modernization that, we are losing something. So if whenever possible, and again, I'll order delivery here and there too, but there really is a power in coming together communally.
There is.
To eat and, socialize. So
yeah, I was just going to say that, we all have something in this world that doesn't sit right with us. It could be factory farming, it could be racism, it could be craziness with international politics. All of us, we see the issues, magnified in our minds. What I mean is that every now and then we fantasize about, geez, if I was in this position of power and I had the opportunity to do this or say this, I could. But the fact of the matter is, most people you hear about on television are doing just that. And what it does, not that it is never helpful, but what it tends to do in many junctures is it creates a lot more noise. It creates noise on top of noise and tension on top of tension. But people start looking for somebody who's just going to service a small community and create some, recipes from the heart with a clear mission statement in mind and a purpose and a dedication that we're doing this. We're not going this way. It's fine if you do, but as for us, we go this way. And when they come to you, they get fed. They get hosted, they get treated well, they're happy. They learn something about food alternatives that might soften their hearts when it comes to, okay, so maybe the next time I address this big subject, I can remember that not all is lost if we don't have pigs being slaughtered anymore. I mean, I really do believe there is power in a small communal effort such as you have. Big power.
Yeah. And, even if it doesn't spread or have a ripple effect, you're making a difference in the individuals' lives that you interact with. Sometimes I'd say most of my customers come in, they're, pretty nice people in pretty good mood usually because they're coming in to have a nice meal. But sometimes you get someone who comes in and you can tell they're upset or down or angry, and it might have nothing to do with you, or maybe they're there and they're cranky because my doctor told me I need to eat vegetables. But the people who are a little upset or down, those are the ones you can have the biggest impact on if you just treat them with a little bit of kindness. And it's cliche, but really, you come in, you treat people nicely, and it can turn around their whole day. Just as it. You can fall into a bad way of thinking, a negative, destructive way of thinking without being conscious about it. A little concentrated effort to remedy that can can steer someone in the other direction, and then they can pass it on. So yeah, a lot of these, big justice movements, they do start in small communities, and maybe they spread, maybe they stay there, but either way, it's a good thing. So that's what's kept me going, because there's been ups and downs, and you get hit with different things, but just keep on keeping on, and eventually it gets better as long as you stick with it. So
I tell you what, I can't help but feel guilt every time I eat out with the economy as it is. Anytime I decide not to cook and I decide to go eat in, I say to myself, well, I'm going to have to rationalize this somehow. And with you, it's easy because I say, hey, we got to make sure, we're supporting Eric, don't we? I mean, come on. So you give me a reason to spend money. Andrew is thoughtfully asking, is there any practice that came out of COVID that actually helped the business improve, such as increases in DoorDash?
Yeah, well, DoorDash and Grubhub take a huge percentage in fees. So I pass some of that on to the customers who want to order. So I don't want people to not be able to eat our food because they don't have a long enough work break to come and get it. I get it that, some people, that might be the only way they're going to be able to get it. But we do prefer to see in person, call on the phone, pay in person. Cash is cool. Yeah. But yeah, that's when we started doing the deliveries. I tried doing in-house deliveries a little bit and realized just for us to be able to offer it all day long, the only way to do that was through these third-party apps without having a dedicated delivery driver. Because it's kind of, we figured, well, if we're busy, then there isn't going to be an extra person to do the deliveries because you're going to need them in the kitchen. So farming it out does make sense. And I feel like it allows us to reach more people. Looking into other ways that we might be able to get more food out, maybe more catering or sending food further away. Because west of us in New Jersey, there isn't a lot. If you drive east or north, there's more options. Even in Millville, I mean, our friend opened another vegan place a block south of us, Ellen. She's really sweet and she has really good food. She's open 5 days a week usually. So, Millville's becoming a vegan mecca. It's nice for me to have somewhere else to eat that's all vegan and I don't have to worry about ingredients. But the vegan options, even at other, I'm trying to read Race's thing there, Carnas. But, there's plenty of places you can eat vegan. But there's a certain nice thing about eating at a place that's all vegan, especially if they're trying to source local and organic and, whole foods, non-GMO, all those kind of things. And, I get to travel a little bit here and there. When I'm away, I do look forward to my food, at the restaurant when I come back. I feel like it holds up. And a lot of that's just the simplicity and freshness of the ingredients.
That's right.
A lot of places do use more processed things, or other places are such a indulgent fine dining experience that you can't afford to do it regularly, even if the food is delicious and you want to. So a lot of other vegan places, I feel like, fall into either they're like too high end or too low bar, So we hold that middle ground and try to keep it affordable. Sure. Something that you can eat every day and feel good and feel good about supporting the local economy and the local farmers. Right. And there's plenty of other vegan places that embrace that ethic as well. But there's a lot of, hey, we could deep fry everything. And,
that I think is one of your strongest suits, though. I was kind of trying to find the words earlier, and you just helped me, realize why. I mean, in restaurants where they offer vegan options, I know that sometimes Carrie and I can't even risk it because of pan sharing. And she's much more sensitive to that than I am because she actually has meat allergies. Then with some of the things that are put in these processed packaged items, there's so many ingredients in them. Sometimes you just don't know what slips in there along with it. And we've had a couple instances where we ruled something out for that reason as well. But when we come to you, we know that everything is fresh. We know that everything is clean, that all of the pans are, we know everything that's going in and out of your pans and blenders. And we just know, okay, well, if we go here, A, we're going to have a delicious meal, and B, nobody's getting sick today. So that means that's one major reason why your business model is very important to us. And I'm sure others as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a huge point of, honor and pride and flattery to have gotten to know so many of the same people for the past 14, 15 years. And it's like, all right, I haven't scared them off yet. But
no, most certainly not.
Just thinking about other jobs I've had and other, like personal relationships and things, it's a long time these days for almost anyone to do almost anything. So, we get to see some exciting, positive changes in the community. Oh yeah, cross-contamination and allergies. It's a concern.
I mean, yeah. If I could address that real quick, Race Lever. It's like people. I'm a person. I try to explain this to people recently. I don't think they believe me. I don't think they believe me for some reason. But I try to tell them I'm not very argumentative, and I'm not very picky, and I don't want to be a pain in anybody's neck. Nobody believes me when I tell them that. But I literally have to say at many restaurants we sit down in, hey, could you please use a clean pan when you prepare this? I understand it's busy back there, but my wife will get sick. I mean, it is a serious thing that people just don't think about. The rush, the hustle, the bustle, the rush to just push out dishes. I get it. That's how the industry stays alive. But my goodness, I mean, you got to be careful when you're messing around with food allergies. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think part of the reason so many people have so many food allergies now is because of what's been allowed to have been done to food in this country. I mean, the genetic engineering and all the pesticides and things and all the ultra processing. I mean, you buy a box of, Fruit Loops or you can't because they're illegal, but in other countries, but, some of the brands that are big mainstays of American culture, McDonald's, you look at the ingredients for a burger at an American McDonald's and it's, a paragraph or a page. And in Europe, the same thing is like, a sentence. So different parts of the world have different regulations in terms of food safety and, what's considered food. And, a lot of Europe's way ahead of us in that, the big corporation, big money interests have really compromised people's health in this country. I mean, the obesity epidemic, the different allergies, celiac. I mean, who knew about that 40 years ago?
Right.
This is all, and maybe some of it's environmental, microplastics and whatnot. But with all of these big issues, all of these, food safety issues and social justice issues, vegan is kind of a shortcut because you're eliminating what's inherently exploitative. And anytime you're purchasing an animal sourced ingredient, an animal was force bred, force held captive, force slaughtered, all against their will. And 99.999% of it was produced under conditions that were ecologically, devastative, exploitative for the workers in these facilities. And they they brought living, feeling beings into existence to give them a short, miserable life and then brutally kill them. People want to talk cherry pick the very best examples of animal agriculture and, my grandma had chickens in the backyard and she loved them and petted them and all that. And yeah, cool. But the ones you buy in the grocery store, that's not
it. That's not it at all.
One. And the smaller scale animal agriculture, there's a big movement, towards to get back to that. But you can't feed the amount of people that are in the world with small scale animal agriculture. The big picture is, raising animals for food is on its way out. It might be because of another pandemic. The bird flu is circulating like crazy now. There's all of these big diseases come from confining animals and treating them like garbage.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? See, we think about this from the perspective usually of, what am I eating? Is it healthy, unhealthy? What, how is it going to affect my diet? That's pretty much where it ends for us. But we rarely think about, is this what's causing tremendous amounts of world disease? Is this what is part of the reason that these things invade our lives at every possible level and sometimes even trigger huge economic and global events? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't usually think about it in bigger picture terms like that.
I do. Since you're an author, I'll mention some books. I know, a lot of people don't read anymore unless it's on their little computer screen. But, when I went vegan, I read a few things that were really foundational to shaping my ideology on this. And one was called Meat Market by Eric Marcus. And he talked about dismantling animal agriculture and, getting past the emotion and, feeling, getting upset, because it's traumatic to see what they do to animals. You either have to get cold and shut it off, or, open your heart, and that doesn't feel good because you're witnessing something that's awful. Mm-hmm. So for most people, you don't want to live in that emotion and that trauma. It can have health effects on you. So you got to move past it and become rational and say, this is just something that its time has passed. Maybe there was a long, span of humanity's existence where that's kind of what made sense, was raising animals for food, because in many parts of the world you couldn't grow enough beans or whatever. But in our world of technology and globalization, come on, you're going to eat a caveman diet, but you're going to spend all day drinking soda and being on your playing video games. I guess you wouldn't drink the soda, but still, it's logically dishonest and inconsistent, to try to pick and choose what parts of this was popular in the past, so that's okay for me to do. Think of all the violent and exploitative traditions that have existed that we've moved away from, or hopefully have moved away from. So exploiting animals for food, I believe, is one of them. And yeah, you're going to find the exceptions to the rule, where there's a small farmer who's pretty nice to their animals, and maybe those animals do have, by and large, a decent life. But that's not how it can work for everyone. And one of the sayings, I forget who said this, but stop trying to find the right way to do the wrong thing. And you're buying
Race Lever is touching on that as well with his comment. Yep. Less humane usually equal less cruel doesn't mean not cruel.
Yeah. So, I think it's something that for more and more reasons we're seeing, hey, let's get away from this. And at the supermarket now, you have so many options that are just drop-in one-for-one replacements for all of your favorite animal products, be it, butter, yogurt, cheese, burgers, hot dog, any kind of meat almost. And some of it is processed, and maybe you shouldn't eat it 3 times a day. But if you're getting enough good stuff into your diet, a little bit here and there that maybe has a little more salt or a little more oil, for most of us is going to be okay. And let's be honest, as vegans too, that we're still going to grow old and die. We are going to face health issues. I think that's a big thing in the vegan movement, that a lot of people get sold on this, like veganism is the key to immortality and vitality. If I just eat potato chips all day, I'll feel great and live forever. And it doesn't really work out that way. When you're younger, you can get away with a lot of that. But the older you get, the more important the fresh produce is, and the, whole foods, you need to eat the good stuff. And if you eat enough good stuff, you don't need to be so picky about everything you eat. There's a nutritionist called Anthony Disson who has that sort of ideology. Yes, COVID will change your taste buds, or can. And actually, your taste buds regenerate every 30 days or so. So if you try eating a different way, give it a few weeks, and chances are you'll adapt to it. And then, you go back to what you were eating before, you might not have the palate for that anymore. I used to love cheese. I stopped eating cheese because I couldn't disassociate what was happening to those mother cows and the calves and the whole thing. I couldn't see the cheese without seeing its past and how it was produced and how violent and exploitative that was for those animals that deserve a good life. And I lost my taste for it. There have been a few times where I've accidentally eaten something that had dairy in it. I get sick. Your body loses its ability to digest lactose. You become lactose intolerant because you're not a baby cow. You stop eating it for long enough, and you do. I mean, people all over the world eat all sorts of different things. That's part of why it's interesting to eat other cultures' cuisines. So just because you try something, and it didn't work out, you might want to keep at it a little bit longer and make sure you're getting enough calories and make sure you're getting enough nutrition. Plenty of people who eat animal products are deficient in B vitamins, B12. That's like one of the big, vegans need to supplement with B12. And you probably should, because today's produce tends to be washed thoroughly. So it might not have the bacteria sourced B12 on it. Sorry, I'm not good at multitasking with the
That's all right. I'm just throwing them up so that they get acknowledged, but you can keep talking, sir.
Anyway, so the one book I would recommend was Meat Market by Eric Marcus, and he talks a little bit about animal agriculture and the need to divest from it. And I thought that made an awful lot of rational sense. And the other one is more on the spiritual plane, World Peace Diet by Will Tuttle. Really sweet.
That one I know.
Yeah, he's sort of a hippie, lives in a van, drives around his wife. They make, food for themselves without following recipes too strictly. And he makes some cool, peaceful music. But he wrote this book that sort of talked about different elements of, killing for food and how that's really shaped society since, 10,000 years ago or so, when, people planted down and had more regular agriculture and, fighting over territory and all that. So, he goes into sort of how commodifying and exploiting animals sort of represses our innate kindness. And that's why a lot of children, when they're young and they find out, oh, that sausage used to be a pig, they don't want to eat it. They have to really be, coerced into it. Oh, no, it's okay because the animal doesn't feel like we do, or that's what they're for. That's what they're made for, And
the thing that I struggle the most with is the lobster.
Oh,
that was the thing. I took a vacation in Maine once, and you couldn't go into a gift shop without a piece of merchandise that was literally just mocking and satirizing the process, because it's just it's so engraved in the culture up there. But yeah, they tried to feed me this crap for years about how they don't have nerve endings, and it's actually like more humane to be placed in alive than dead, because when you freeze to death in the freezer or something, that's like a more pain. All this bullshit, right? Pardon me, I just cursed. But and I just read a study recently that it was like lobsters are more human than we think. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. We're just now realizing in 2024, maybe boiling living things alive is a tad much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 100%, 1,000%. People are waking up, and the science very consistently goes towards animal sentience, and what used to be the Descartes sort of like, oh, they're automatons, they feel nothing, they have no feelings, that's been so debunked, and it's becoming irrefutable. But a lot of big businesses make a lot of money off of the current system, so it's going to be tough to turn it around. But a lot of those same businesses are investing very heavily in plant-based alternatives, so they're going to be covered either way. We don't need money for the big dairies and the big process, Tyson and all these big companies that murder animals by the billions. They're going to be just fine.
Right.
The people at the bottom who make the food are already, it'd be nice if they had a different job that had benefits and
sure,
so dangerous. So
definitely. Can you believe we've been talking for over an hour?
I can. I see the counter there. I was worried when I saw it in the intro. I was like, oh, an hour. Am I going to have enough material? I almost feel like we could talk for another hour.
We sure could. We absolutely could. Yeah, these conversations, on this format, they tend to go for a while because we come together on why we do what we do, on our philosophies, and we could, go all night about that. Eric, have you enjoyed being here tonight?
Absolutely. And I'd say, Alec, I know we got to wrap up, but man, when you approached me about this and told me it was a Zoom thing, I was kind of nervous about it because I was like, oh, I don't know, technology, but I got over it. Thank you for enlightening me to that. This was lovely. I really enjoyed our conversation, and 6 hours. Next episode, 6 hours minimum.
That's right. That's right. Well, with that in mind, I always tell people whenever we have a good conversation and especially whenever an audience is responsive to it, you're always welcome back. We can always schedule another interview. We could dive more into recipes. We could, talk about news that's coming up that's very pertinent, ways we could support you. You're always welcome back for an interview. That's just something that we give you here, especially when you're such a great conversationalist. A question that I always ask when we're starting the wrap up is, what can we all do right now to support you?
Oh, well, my business is open 7 days a week. So, in Millville, we're open 11 to 6, Monday through Thursday, 11 to 8, Friday and Saturday, and 11 to 5 on Sunday. So give us a call, stop on by, wildflowervegan.com, 856-265-7955. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Post the specials on Facebook and Instagram. Usually we sell a lot of lunch stuff, salads, wraps, soups, good baked goods, different specials throughout the week. Maybe we're always working on expanding the menu, but we move a lot of the lunch stuff that that people enjoy. So, I always feel motivated to do more, but yeah, just come in, and bring a friend. But if you do need to order through Grubhub or DoorDash, I'm not offended. I'm happy to serve you. But we like seeing you in person whenever we can. So.
Eric, I tell you, you're a great, person. You have a great business model that just, comes from the fact that you're dedicated to doing good in the world and servicing people and giving them a place where they can, be serviced in such a way. That's a beautiful thing. You don't always get that when you walk into any old shop. Sometimes you feel like people are just there for a paycheck and you have to, go and grab their attention. But not here. And here in this interview, it's evident as well. You're really passionate about just making sure that you're putting healthy food in us and giving us a healthy spiritual, emotional experience while we're there. I love the music that plays sometimes when I've been walking in lately. I really appreciate that as well. I just want to thank you for serving the community.
Well, thank you and Carrie for helping me be there. And, wonderful people like you are why we're doing it, why we've been able to do it.
Oh, I agree. She is wonderful. And me, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress.
It's cool to be part of each other's journey and help each other learn and, succeed. So.
Yes. And thank you to everybody who is watching. Thank you, Race Lever. Thank you, Andrew. This has been wonderful engagement this evening. I've been happy to see that. If you enjoyed the stream tonight, I invite you to stop by again at 9:30. I'll be reading a chapter of my book, The Children of Ark, which is all about a demon slayer. That's always fun. So if you're interested in that, just check back right here at 9:30. I'll be live. And Eric, I guess we'll do the wrap up now. So is there anything else you'd like us to know?
Oh man, let's save it for the next episode. I look forward to tuning in at 9:30 to hear the reading.
Appreciate you so much, sir. And thank you everybody for watching. This is sponsored by One True Promotion, which is an alliance of authors dedicated to promoting the indie community and also local businessmen who support our community. Eric, it's been a pleasure talking to you and hope to talk to you again soon.
Likewise, Alec. Thanks so much.
You got it. Good night, everybody.